my parents used to tell me that they would get around the radio at a certain moment during the night to hear their, you know, soap opera, their novela on the radio. You know, as a young kid, I would say, like, that's so funny, you know. You would get around a radio at a certain time to hear a show. And now I see this image of this family, like, around the TV, you know, after dinner, Tuesday night, ready for their show. And this is something my kids do not understand. You know, we are living a transformation in this industry like nothing we've seen before. I've got an 8-year-old daughter, and she goes like, what, you had to wait until a certain time of day to watch your show? You can just like press play? I was like, no, there wasn't a play button in the remote controls. There was a channel up and channel down. And you would have to wait. And if you missed your show, that was it. You would have to wait for a rerun. Like, they do not understand that. They have no idea what that is. So, you know, I think most of us lived through this picture, you know, gathering around the TV at a certain time to watch a show. And it's something the new generation does not understand now. So that's how fast things are moving in our industry. And while we would like to say that we know what the future is bringing to us and that we have the winning lottery numbers, we do not. But we think that together, all of us, we're building that. And these new products that we will be talking about, those are the things that we see are helping our customers move towards the future. So if you had an AWS Media presentation in the past year, or if you attended one, you probably know this slide. This is what we were talking about during all. AWS empowers our clients and our customers towards architecting innovation. So we talked about, you know, use your resources for what you're best at. We do not believe media companies have to become the best IT companies in the world. We believe media companies should be producing content, should be monetizing that content, should be talking to advertisers, because that is what you guys do best, better than anybody else. You know, that is your focus, creating stories, creating that engagement, having these amazing shows. So we do believe that, you know, leave the heavy lifting IT for us. We don't want your IT areas to be bothered by, you know, there's a patch, we ran out of storage, users are not using the correct passwords. You know, we want IT to be the empowering force to create the future of television, of that change that we're seeing from that original picture in which the families gathered together to watch their show towards a TV everywhere, towards a, you know, it's my content, I want to watch it whenever I want it, however I want it, in whatever device. So that's what we think, you know, we would like to believe that we're empowering you guys to do to create that future. We also talked about, you know, constraint and physical locations. I was in a discussion earlier this week where they were actually looking for a solution, an emergency solution, so that creators, artists could work from home because of the coronavirus. So they were like, you know, we want everybody to stay home. We don't want anybody to come into the office because this thing is scary. So we want everybody to stay home, but we want to empower them to be working from home as if they were working in our office. And it's one of those things that we hadn't necessarily thought of, but, you know, it's better to be prepared. I am based in Mexico City most of the time. And we had a influenza, a flu outbreak about 10 years ago, and everybody had to stay home. And just, you know, productivity in companies dropped. What if that wasn't an issue? What if you can empower your creators to do their work wherever they're at? So, you know, we actually have the Teradici folks over here that will be presenting an artist doing using a remote editing station, which will be very interesting. We also talk about how we saw a linear product development way of working being changed into something much more modular. We talked about these Lego blocks that AWS empowers you to use as to produce things in a much faster way and a much more efficient. And we also talked about fail fast and move on to the next thing. That's a lot of what we are focusing in at AWS. We believe that invention will not be a one thing, I just thought of it, overnight kind of thing. It will be a series of failures during the project's life that will actually come into producing something that's interesting. I had the opportunity a few years back to talk with the guys from Rovi, Angry Birds. You probably all heard about Angry Birds. And they were saying, everybody is asking us that, or is questioning why we're milking Angry Birds the way we are. Because, they did merchandising in movies and different versions of the same game. And what they said was, it took us 49 iterations of games to finally find one that worked, which is called Angry Birds. And now that we've found it, we will milk it until the last moment because we think it will take us another 49, 59, 100 iterations to find the next big game. And we need to be able to do that really fast and move on to the next things until we find what will be the replacement Angry Birds. So that's the sort of thing that we are looking for. We do realize we have to do these iterations. The light bulb took 1,000 experiments to do. If every one of those experiments was a multi-million-dollar experiment, we might not have light bulbs today. So that's the idea. How can we help you guys do that? So during reInvent, we had to focus on these 4 subjects. Low latency, because we're seeing an important trend towards ultra-low latency to be competing against normal broadcast over-the-air kind of solutions. And we are now, with our just regular products that are already available, we are achieving under 5-second latency for live transmission, which means you can basically start watching a soccer match, for those of you who are fans of soccer, lots of folks from Latin America here, and you can actually watch the goal before your neighbor. So, those of us who are fans of the World Cup, how frustrating it was to hear your neighbor scream for the goal before you actually saw it on TV because you were watching through a DTH high definition that would take 2 seconds more than just an SD transmission broadcasted. And so one of our customers was actually saying, that is something I could sell to my customers. Watch the game 2 seconds before your neighbor. You be the one screaming the goal and ruining the experience for the other guys. So, we're seeing that microtransactions, micro-betting, it becomes very relevant to have low latency. Smarter media workflows, so a smarter way of approaching this, not as separate projects, but as an overall holistic way of solving the issues. We did a bunch of enhancements of AWS core services, and I am going to talk about some of the big references, customer wins, and things that they are doing. I'm going to go a little fast through these because we're a little tight on time. But these slides will be available for you, and you can go back to them and just ask your AWS representative if you want to go and do a deep dive in any of these. So what did we see with our customers? We are trying to bring hardware closer to the end user so that the experience is better when doing many of these things that require low latency. So local zones. This is one of the big things. This is it was announced as a general new service, but it is very focused for media customers. So it's an extension of a normal AWS region closer to the customer. And the very first local zone, LA, because that's where media is happening. So Foxy will be using a lot of that. We have several customers already testing it out. We are hoping to see a bigger deployment as we move into the future. And the idea is that you can drop latency down to below 10 milliseconds. For editing in the cloud becomes very relevant. The idea is you bring out your tablet, you can do editing, and it feels like you're doing it right there on the hardware while it's actually being done in the cloud. Wavelength zones. So this is 5G. It's very important to do live contribution towards mobile devices. So the idea is we're working very closely with Verizon and other telecom carriers to bring this hardware closer to the antennas that provide mobile service. So, you probably know much better than I that our users and users of content use a lot of mobile devices, and they want to have this experience of, I'm at my house's Wi-Fi, fiber connected, I move out of the house, and I want it to be seamless. It has to be the same sort of experience. So if we're transmitting live events through a wireless network, this will make things a lot easier. Outposts. This is actual AWS hardware on-prem. So you will have EC2 and S3 instances sitting right there in your data centers, and the whole idea is to make things move faster and be much smoother. So when we see how live broadcast works today, we have a regular workflow going all the way from wherever we're recording the content, be it on-site or in a studio, and how it goes to the control room and finally does the distribution. So we have had this view of, different areas that we've been working, and maybe you've done proof of concepts with AWS for specific areas, and looking at how we can enhance that experience, reduce costs, be more agile, allow for creation and innovation. But what we are thinking of is a whole new a whole new way of processing this. So how would we redo this current workflow into something more modern? This is our idea. So using all of these services I was talking about for ultra low latency, using 5G networks to do the original content capture, and then transmitting it, using Media Connect to do the connection towards different sites, and then having everything in the cloud. So your control room in the cloud just being accessible, anywhere your staff is. So it becomes very interesting, and this is the sort of thing that we are already testing with some customers, and that we are working towards making it streamlined so it's easier to test for anybody that wants to see how this works. We do have some tests around the world in which we are running this as a backup plan or as a tier 2 channel distribution before going into the big tier 1 live channels, and it's working very well. It's working very, very well. So if you're interested in this sort of information, reach out to your account managers, and we can talk about how we can implement this or start implementing this in your own operations. These are not, quick projects that you just press a button and suddenly you have everything set up. It requires a lot of knowledge on how you're currently operating, but it is a process that we would love to start working with you guys so that in the future you are ready for what it is to come. Now, talking about making all those workflows smarter, so using a lot of machine learning and making it easy to use. So, when we talk to our customers and we bring all these new services and, you got all this core ML services, they go like, that's wonderful, but I'm a media company. I am not a machine learning, artificial intelligence company. I don't have a room full of data scientists just waiting for me to come up with ideas. How can you help us make this easier? So we've been looking into ways of improving the experience for our customers. So it's easy to implement, and it doesn't require a deep knowledge on machine learning, statistics, and information, and all such. And we've also noticed that even though computers are very smart, they haven't reached human levels. So adding a human in the loop makes it very relevant and provides much more information. It makes it more reliable. One of the big workloads that we're talking about a couple of years ago was closed captioning, subtitling. And if you've ever talked to companies that just do subtitling, they'll go like, no, subtitling is an art. It's not something a computer will be able to just do because, there's dialogues and there's intonation and there's so much going on. And they're right. They are right. So, we believe these are tools that will help be much more efficient and reduce costs for those guys that are the artists and actually presenting the dialogues and how they are transmitted on screen. So what we've seen is once you start using these tools, you will be able to reduce costs. We've been seeing 60–70% cost reduction and reduce time by about 80% because it becomes much faster for people to use a general tool and then just actually do that art part by a human. Kendra, I don't know if you heard about Amazon Kendra. It is a search service for enterprises. So, anybody who's worked in an enterprise realizes that once you start putting a lot of information in those folders, then it simply becomes useless because there's so much information that it's very hard to actually find what you're doing. And if somebody leaves the company, unless they were like very educated and very precise in the way they were storing, it becomes a mess. It has been, we've noticed it's a very human-intensive thing to actually know what's there and where it is and how it was stored and all the conditions. So the idea is it will be a search engine for enterprises so they can look up anything, documents, files. For us in media, we're talking about content, an easy way to look for content, to search content using different repositories and different sources and just making life easier for all of us. Recognition custom labels. This is also something our customers had been requesting for quite a while. It's, recognition is an amazing tool, but I need to recognize logos. I want to know if a brand was there on the screen for 9 seconds or 10 seconds because, I get paid for that. So I need to be able to know if something was shown on screen, what it was, and it's not just, face recognition, it's not just text. So the idea is here we can recognize logos, we can recognize brands, we can tag shapes, shape of a bottle, so that we know if they're using a certain bottle in certain content. So it becomes very interesting. It's a very powerful tool. We have a customer doing a proof of concept, looking at logos of soccer T-shirts, and using that information to see if the content is being pirated and being streamed where it shouldn't. So they're actually looking at not just what's going on screen, but actually the T-shirts, and that way they can say, oh, this is a Real Madrid against Barcelona, and it should be streaming because that's not a game we have rights, and they can take action towards eliminating that. Amazon Augmented AI, this is what we're talking, adding a human in the loop of ML. So realizing, humans are smarter, still. And how can we help put a human in these loops to get better confidence levels and just in general a better experience towards the end customer. Core services. So there were a bunch of changes in compute and network storage and just our general native MIA services. I'll go quickly through this. So new processors with better performance, better pricing. The idea is for transcode, rendering, supply chain operations, we'll have better processing power. Compute optimizer, this is very interesting. It's a recommendation engine for optimizing EC2 instances. So again, we're media guys. We don't necessarily know how many CPUs, what RAM needs to be there to do these works. So this tool will help you understand how to optimize those instances to make the most out of your dollars. Talking with customers, they usually tell us, we understand that AWS charges us for what we use. But the reality is that we will want to charge you for what you need. If you're using something and it's not what you need, you could use something smaller. That's something we want to do. We really, really want you guys to just be using what you need in the best way possible. New graphic instances. So new NVIDIA GPUs. Nitro enclaves. This is very interesting for isolating highly sensitive data. If you're talking about content, if this is like very specific content that you need to isolate from the rest, this is the way to do it. UltraWarm, which is an Elasticsearch service. It complements what we already had. So the idea is that you will add support for high volumes of older, less frequently accessed data, and you can take advantage of these searches that are very important for our business. Media workflows, a little bit of what we had talked about. New ways to do VPNs, cross-region peering, multicast support for the transit gateway, S3 replication. So you already have your workloads set up. This is the way to improve how they are currently working towards more reliable, more robust, better communication. Very interesting. StatMax for Media Live. So if you've used Media Live in the past, we are now supporting statistical multiplexing outputs. So it's something that's already there. You can start using if needed. And some examples. So we probably heard about Fox because we've been telling everybody that lends an ear that Fox is doing a lot with us. They changed completely their broadcast operation to gear it towards the cloud. And they're using a lot of what we saw. Outposts, local zones, reduce latency, and just in general improve the experience so that when end users are looking at creating content in the cloud, they actually feel it's faster, it's better, it's easier to use, and not just like somebody imposed this on me without any benefits or without explaining what it is. But we want folks to be excited about these new technologies and things that can be done. Talking to a small creative agency, they were telling us this cloud thing is just wonderful. I was constrained by whatever hardware I had, so I could not take a job that was beyond my hardware capabilities. And nowadays, we can basically become Disney for a weekend. Same sort of processing capabilities. Me, a small agency, I have the same resources. So it's that ability of leveling the field and allowing everybody to have access to these incredible tools. ProSieben chose AWS as their main cloud supplier, so very excited about that. And the NFL, and I added this because I think it's a very interesting approach, is using a lot of its data that they have from recordings, media, all the IoT sensors that the players are wearing to reduce head trauma. So a completely novel approach. Now they're using the knowledge that they have and the information they have for a medical improvement. So they've changed the helmets, they've changed the way the rules of the game so that there's less trauma, and all that with information they already had gathered. So when you hear them talk about this is impacting people's lives. This goes beyond entertainment, and it's actually providing a safer environment for the NFL players we all love. So, at the end of the day, it's just about testing, trying out. I do believe that, the rooms, the people I get to talk to, we are the creators of the future of what entertainment will be. So let's build on.